So I have the pleasure of presenting Wendy Wilson with Envera Systems. She is the Director of Business Development. And my name is Eric Malloy with AKAM. I am the Director of Client Relations Southeast for Florida. And so without any further ado, Wendy, I'm going to hand everything over to you and we'll jump right into today's discussion.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Let me share my screen. All right. You able to see?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much. Again, my name is Wendy Wilson. I'm Director of Business Development with Envera Systems, and I am very happy to be here today to talk about access control in a virtual age. Difficulty here. Okay. First, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Envera. We are community security specialists, and our focus is in cost-efficient technology-based solutions for communities only. So we don't work with commercial or industrial or institutional. We're only serving HOAs and CDDs across Florida and Texas. We're a full-service provider. We've got our monitoring operations center in Sarasota, Florida. That's where I'm located right now. We've got sales offices in Dunedin, corporate offices in Coconut Creek. We were started in 2007, so we've been doing this for quite some time. And we've got more than 300 employees across Florida and Texas. So we are one of the largest, the fastest growing organically growing security companies in the country. And the way that we have been able to do that is through our relationships with communities and our clients. We're partnering with over 25 different developers, many of them national developers like Pulte, Coulter, Lennar, Taylor Morrison, Toll Brothers, and over 30 different property management firms like AKAM, Access Management, and others. We've got close to 1,000 total customers, as you can see on the screen here, and primarily in Florida, but we are getting started in Texas now. And I've done a little blow up of Southeast Florida. So you can just see there are many, many communities that are utilizing our services. And over 400 of our clients are utilizing our virtual gate guard services. So with Envera, we say that the devices and things that you see on site are really just the tip of the iceberg. We do install kiosks and cameras and access readers and speakers and all those types of things, but it's really what's going on behind the scenes that is the Envera difference. We've got specific support teams. We've got resident services teams to help residents specifically, account services and account management that work with community management and board members. That 24/7 monitoring operations center where I'm located, where our trained agents are, our service technicians and IT specialists are all tasked and dispatched out of these offices as well. We're doing behind the scenes device checks. The idea is that what you need is where you need it when you need it. So we're pinging all those devices every 5 minutes to make sure that they're up, they're alive, they're recording, they're doing what they need to do. We provide incident reports for, gate break events, vandalism, trespass events, that type of thing, and then full video services as well. Additionally, we have a system integration and onboarding team. So any new communities that come on board with us, we're not just installing equipment and leaving community management to do the rest. We're working with the community management to determine post orders, to work with resident education, credential distribution, all of those types of things to make sure that the communities are fully supported at the time that we're ready to go live. So our solutions, like I said, we're community-based only, and the solutions that we offer for a fully integrated system largely fall in these 4 buckets. So virtual guardings for those communities that are guarded, barrier gates work in tandem with that. There's a couple different options for video surveillance, and then of course, electronic access control that ties everything together. So we'll talk about each of these a little bit more in detail. The virtual gate guard is really our signature product. And so this is what you're going to have at a gated community entrance. It's 2-way audio, 1-way video, live guard interaction at the gate. There's a couple different options to work with that. We use license plate recognition, driver's license scanning, QR code, as well as a new type of technology we're utilizing is vehicle type recognition. That one's really exciting for us. There's not another provider that does anything like this, but we've got AI overlaid into the cameras that are able to read, say, the Amazon logo on the side of a vehicle, or the US Postal Service, or waste management, fire trucks and first responders and that type of thing. So when the camera recognizes those types of vehicles, it will automatically open the gate and expedite them into the communities quickly. The systems are designed so that we're capturing and archiving driver faces, license plates, specific information on vehicle types as well. There is a record of each permitted or denied visitor. There is My Envera, which is the resident guest management system. Currently, we're taking over 2 million visitor transactions per month here in our monitoring center across those almost 500 virtual gate guard customers. Less than 10-second response time. So from the time that the car pulls up to the kiosk, there's a loop in the ground that triggers that transaction back to our virtual guards. The transaction will go to the next available guard. So less than 10 seconds for us to greet those visitors to the community. And then for visitors that are not already on a guest list or automatically verified, less than a minute to verify them and expedite them into the community. So the virtual guards, they're remote agents. The picture that you see there, that's not a stock photo. That's actually the monitoring center that's right outside my door here. It's kind of like a timeshare for guards. So average cost to have a live guard at one gated entrance 24/7 is about $150,000 a year. But in most communities, there's times where there's not going to be that many visitors. So you're kind of time sharing so that the guards are picking up those transactions. They may take a transaction in Miami, then Orlando, then Dallas, then Sarasota. So it's just next available guard goes to the next available transaction. Our software is great. It will pop up with all of their information with that community's post orders. And we set things up very standardized. So it's easy for our guards to fluidly move from one community to another. Again, it's real-time human intervention. There's all sorts of detailed reporting with that. There's 24/7 supervision and continued training. We're utilizing AI a lot with those visitor transactions. So we're monitoring, following the script. We're monitoring tone of voice. We want all of the visitors that come through Envera secured communities to have a pleasant and professional experience in interacting with us. And so the supervisors, which you can kind of see in that image a little bit, are at the end of each row, and they'll follow up with continued training with the agents to make sure that they're following post orders and following the scripts. And it's just a more cost-effective and affordable solution for communities to really restrict access to communities. So we'll talk about each of those different types of automation. What we've learned over the 17 years of virtual guarding is that the majority of visitors to any given community are repeat visitors. So we developed a way to be able to expedite those repeat visitors. The most secure version would be driver's license scanning. So the visitors would present a driver's license. We're not doing anything with a magnetic strip or anything that's outside of what Florida statutes allow. We're simply taking a picture of the front of the license and using optical character recognition to query the database and see if that visitor is correlated with any resident guest list. If they are, they will be auto-verified through the gates. And if they're not, then they would just, the transaction would go to a guard to verify them that way. It expedites those repeat visitors. And like I said, you get the highest level of verification because you get the driver's license information on the actual driver of the vehicle. Can also be used in conjunction with an on-site guard, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment.
Yeah, Wendy, I think that's actually a great one. Because we do have some where, like you mentioned before, you'll have off hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you may want to have a daytime guard, right, in person there for your busy hours, daytime, but then your overnight, right? That cost is literally to have somebody sitting there when there's no traffic going in that gate. So a hybrid system like that, I think a lot of communities don't know that something like that exists, that they can have a daytime guard and then a virtual for those off hours where traffic is not as busy.
Absolutely. Yep, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail, but that is a great solution. In the post-COVID world, I think, so many things changed, and what we heard from a lot of customers was, sometimes those on-site guards weren't showing up for their guard shift, and then the community gates were just open during that time. So this is a great solution for those types of situations.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, actually. That's another great point.
Yeah. So the next type of auto verification would be license plate recognition. So this works a lot like toll by plate throughout the toll highways. So not quite as specific, right? You're getting information on the vehicle that's passing through the gate, but not specifically the driver. Those cameras are incredibly sophisticated. They take about 200 frames per second, and then they query the database to see if there's a license plate that's associated again with a visitor record. To expedite entry, this would be the very fastest form of auto verification. Obviously, driver's license is going to take a little bit longer for people to get their license out and that type of thing. But this is incredibly fast, and then it's a log of all those license plate that's available as well. And again, same transaction footage and audio that's stored for any other type of system as well. So the next type of auto verification would be QR code automation. This one actually can be layered on top of either of the other two types as well. So I really love this solution for those one-time visitors. And we've actually updated the app. So now there's a little banner across the top. If you have an Uber driver coming to pick you up or DoorDash is coming to deliver, you can actually copy the QR pass directly into those apps to provide to that driver for that single entry. We always want to make sure, right, that people are not putting, Uber on their permanent guest list so that they can come in at any time. We want to make sure that we have a good correlation of that specific entry to that specific resident. So the QR code looks just like you see on the screen there. It can be shared in app, or it can be sent via email or text message as well. And all of those same types of transactional history is associated with it as well. So this is what you started talking about there a second ago, Eric, the hybrid type of solution. So the software that we've developed specifically for managing communities can be used by on-site guards. We do have some communities that they just use our software and they have on-site guards. So we see this a lot with maybe developers. When it's a developing community, they like to have the presence of the guard to say, the model homes are the second street to the left. And, that one-on-one personalization. Sometimes in, very high-end communities, the prestige of having a live guard is important to the communities as well. So we can either provide them with the PC and the software. The residents all have the same Envera capabilities that we'll talk about in a moment, or we can do that hybrid solution. And we saw a lot of that post-COVID communities that we had worked with that were like, nope, we really like our live guards and that's the way we want to go. And then they started finding people calling out for guard shifts. And we've been doing a lot more partnering with those live guard companies to be able to do this type of hybrid solution. Across the board, there's very little visitor traffic after about 8 o'clock at night and through to about 6 o'clock in the morning. So to your point a moment ago, those guards typically are sitting in the guardhouse and streaming Netflix and doing whatever they're doing. And it's still, you're paying a premium for this. So this is a great way for the community to save some money and still maintain that level of prestige and personalized detail focus to those visitors during peak hours as well.
So Wendy, we did have a couple questions pop up.
Yeah.
And I love it. Thank you guys for being involved and submitting them. So keep them coming. But the first one, going back to the QR. So we had a question, was how long are the one-time codes good for? Is it a day? Is it per entry? Like how long does the QR code last for access?
It's per entry. So it will last. You can put parameters around it. So you can say one-time entry for November the 12th only. Or you can say one-time entry for a longer period of time, and it's good until that one-time entry. All of the entrance options are very specified. So for instance, if you have a cleaning person that comes on Wednesday mornings, you can restrict their access to Wednesday between 8 and noon. And that way, if that same cleaning person services any other homes within the community, they won't be verified against your account. They would go to the specific resident that they're there to see. And they can, those QR codes can be used in that manner as well, so that that QR code is only going to work Wednesday between 8 and noon. Any other day, it wouldn't work and the transaction would go to a guard.
Excellent. And then our second question would be an Uber or say like a Grubhub or fast food delivery, something like that. Would they still need to insert their license into the system for access if they're just doing a delivery or a pickup, say for Uber?
Yeah, it depends on the type of system that the community has. If the community has the driver's license scanning option, then it's up to them in the post orders. Most communities with that option choose to scan driver's licenses for every single person that comes into the community, but everything is customizable down to what suits the community needs the most.
Perfect.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about My Envera. So this is the web portal and the mobile app that residents of Envera guarded communities utilize to manage their guest lists. It's a very simple interface. We take feedback from our customers directly for updates to the system. So that little banner I talked about that can auto send a QR code within another app is a recent enhancement that we made just due to feedback from our customers. So we're constantly looking for ways to improve the way that we serve the communities that we're protecting. You're able to update your visitor list, of course. You're able to update household and profile information. You can receive email, text, or push notifications when you have visitors that come through the gate. So we found once upon a time that people were not necessarily putting their visitors on the guest list because they didn't want to be surprised if a visitor showed up on their front doorstep. So to encourage people to keep people on their guest list, we enabled this idea that you can do a push notification, an email, or a test notification, so that if I show up, you get that notification before that visitor shows up on your front doorstep and you're not surprised. There's also another level of the My Envera that's for property managers and community staff specifically, and we'll look at all of those a little bit in a little bit more detail here. So these are just some screenshots of the resident-facing app, and it's very simple. 3 tabs that they can utilize. The first tab is just for adding and managing visitors. So from that tab, you can easily add a visitor. You can mark somebody as deny. You can remove them. You can send the QR code. You can restrict by days or times or any of those kind of things. We also have a visitor history tab. We really encourage residents to be aware of who's coming in and out of the community on their behalf. So like I said, we wouldn't want to put Uber or Domino's Pizza on your permanent guest list because you're essentially vouching for them to come into the community 24/7 on your behalf. So if you see anything on that visitor history that shouldn't be there, we want you to let us know so that we can look into it and see if they were misverified or what actually happened. Most often it's because people are putting vendors on a permanent guest list. And then the final tab is the account tab. So that allows that access to be able to update the profile if they get a new phone number or a new email address. If they add household members, say, you know, as we have multi-generational households happening a lot lately. So if your in-laws move in with you, or maybe they're just coming to stay for a couple of months, you can add them as a household member. And that way, if somebody comes to the gate to ask for them specifically, you don't have to get the calls to verify who your adult home occupants have on their guest list. You can update your username and password and PIN number. You can opt into those notifications. And then there's also continuing support. So FAQs and tutorial videos and that type of thing. We want to make sure that everybody's fully aware and know how to utilize the app to its fullest possibilities. So as I mentioned, there's also this My Envera for CAMs, and this one is under design at the moment. You can see the interface is not quite as updated as the resident-facing side, but this is so important for community management. It really is a living, breathing database. Residents will definitely make sure that if they get a new phone number or something, that they are updating the gate system to get their visitors through the gate, but they're not always necessarily calling community management and letting them know that they've got updated contact information. There's also a field for them to enter license plate information for their own vehicles, and the majority of residents do that as well. So that's a great resource for community management. If you maybe have a vehicle parked where it shouldn't be, you can just search through the database and see if it's associated with a resident. So we've got the comprehensive resident report. There's the ability for the community management to have a community level guest list. So for those community level vendors, like the landscapers and the pool companies, maybe that service the amenity center and that type of thing, there's the ability to manage that guest list. And then there's the visitor reporting, which is really interesting. You can pull visitor history through a specific gate for a specific period of time. You can pull visitor history for a specific resident for a specific period of time. I always find that to be pretty interesting. When I meet with community management, often I'll have a report like that. And in most communities, you can see there are, there's a median number of visitors, and then there's usually a couple of residents that may have wildly more. Like if the median is 20 visitors a month, there's usually a resident or two that might have 50 or 100 visitors. And that's great information for community management to have. It's possible maybe they're running a business out of their home, and maybe that's not allowed by HOA covenants. So just a lot of really good metrics and details there. I don't have a screenshot of it, but there is one other report that is accessible to community management. That's what we call the community event report. We have a service level agreement with all of our customers that will answer 85% of the calls in 30 seconds or less. Like I said, our community or our company-wide stat is less than 10 seconds. But we want you to be aware of how we're performing and have access to those metrics. So you can see information like total volume through the gate. People are usually very surprised when they see the volume of visitors going through a gate. I've worked with communities in the past that'll say, we've had that gate broken 7 times in the last month, and that's just an awful lot of time for the gate to get struck. But then we go back and look and say, well, there were 15,000 visitors that went through that gate during that same period. So while 7 is a lot when you're resetting the arm, proportionate to the overall visitor traffic, it's not really that many. And they're usually quite surprised to find out how many cars are coming in and out of the community.
I think there's an application too, because we do have some properties, they're very rare, but we do have some properties that maybe have rental space, right? They may have a something at their clubhouse where they rent out for events. So from a management, from a CAM perspective, right, we could add those attendees for those rental events, because they may not necessarily be connected to a resident. They may just be renting a part of the facility. So then the manager or the CAM has the ability to go in and log those people in for access on the day and time of their event, because they aren't connected to a resident. So that's an amazing ability. It's not just something specifically for the residents to use, right? There are practical applications that we as management companies and managers can use also.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'll jump in, Wendy, because we've had a number of questions come in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think one, and I don't want to go too far because I'm definitely on liking the subject of the gate. But we do have one, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. But what would be the typical per hour charge, I guess, comparatively for a virtual guard versus, say, like an on-site guard?
It's typically much, much less expensive than an on-site guard. So I can't give you a ballpark off the top of my head, just because there's a lot of different metrics that go into that.
Yes.
We've been doing this for a while. So the first thing would be the number of homes in the community, right? A 200 home community is going to have a lot less visitors than a 1,000 home community. So that would be one of the big markers. The level of affluence of the community would be another one. Higher affluence homes, they tend to have more visitors than lower affluence homes, just because there's, pool people and house cleaners and landscapers and more of those types of support functions. By zip code actually makes a difference as well. So your area in the Southeast, people tend to have a lot more visitors than they do over in my area, the Southwest. So we look at a lot of different markers when we're pricing these systems out. So we just let us know. We'd love to be able to quote it and show you how you can save definitely a lot more money off of those live on-site guards. I'd say half is probably a conservative estimate in what you can save.
Awesome. And then the other one would be for the reporting. that is on, is the report sorted, or can the report be sorted by license plate numbers?
That's a good question. I'm thinking about that. Yes, if it's a license plate recognition system, then it's definitely searchable by license plate numbers. I think it's probably more to the point. Yeah, you can definitely search via license plate numbers for entries, and then also, like I said, out of that resident database as well. Everything is exportable to an Excel format that you can then search through.
Yep.
And there's expanded reporting as well. I'm just kind of showing you what we make readily available through the CAM level My Envera, but if there's anything else that you'd like to see, our account services team has accessibility to enhanced metrics as well. So we have some customers that want very specific type of reports, and they just let us know, and we send them to them on a monthly basis or however often they need them.
Perfect. We only have one other question. I'll just throw it out there since we're on it, but I think this one's an easy one. We have a couple of requests to share your presentation. So at the end of the webinar today, Wendy and I will both give you our emails, and you can feel free to reach out to us, and we can get you guys whatever information, PowerPoint, answer questions, whatever you guys would need. We're happy to provide it.
Absolutely. All right. So the next facet of community-wide access control would be the resident vehicle entry. In a perfect world, in any community entrance, we would have a dedicated lane for residents and a dedicated lane for visitors. No, that's not always possible, but we really try to keep residents into with their own method of expedited entrance. And typically we do this by radio frequency ID readers and windshield stickers. Typically speaking, if you have a community that, like I just said, had 15,000 visitor entrances per month, you're going to have 2 to 3 times that number of residents going through those same gates, right? There's a lot more residents going in and out of their own communities than visitors to it. So if we can get residents into their own lane, that just expedites them a lot quicker into the community, and also will help visitors get in faster as well. So the RFID readers are awesome. They can read from about 30 feet away. So, the vehicles don't even have to come to a complete stop as they come into the community. As they're pulling up, that RFID reader should pick them up, go ahead and engage the swing gate, which then will hit the limit switch and open the barrier gates. As a side note, we often have communities that might opt to lock open their swing gates during peak times as well. That will just help expedite traffic through faster. The barrier arms operate quicker than a swing gate will. They also deter tailgating a lot better. So we encourage that for the community to save money on the wear and tear on those swing gate operators, to let the barrier arms do heavy lifting during those peak hours. And of course, we have the metrics on all of that. So we can tell any given community, your peak traffic is between 7 and 8 in the morning and, 5 and 8 in the evening. The credentials, like I said, we recommend windshield stickers because they're non-transferable. Once they're adhered to your windshield, just like a SunPass or an Easy Pass, they're designed to not really be able to take them off and utilize them again. They've got a little copper wire embedded in them, and by design, that copper wire is supposed to break when you take them off. So you don't have anybody passing stickers around to other people. We encourage them to register their visitors through the app and expedite the visitors through in that way. The RFID readers, the way that the windshield stickers work is the windshield actually becomes an antenna that boosts the signal. So they read, like I said, from 30 feet away and just really expedite that traffic through in the most efficient manner possible. And then we take care of all the database management for you as well. So like I said, if it's a new community, maybe a retrofit, we'll have representatives come on site and help distribute the credentials. So community management isn't stuck trying to figure out how to get all of these into the residents' hands. We'll do the marketing, let them know, and Envera will be on site during these days and times. You can come out and pick up your stickers. We'll build out that database and upload it and then maintain it for you so that you don't really have to mess with it if you don't want to. Certainly, I know you community managers are all very busy and have a lot better things to do than database management.
And hand out multiple decals for multiple cars every time you get a new renter or somebody else. So exactly. Yeah, the RFID is actually an amazing technology because yes, it it helps eliminate the necessity, because the sticker is on the inside of the
Yes.
vehicle. It's not on the outside, so it's not as subject to fading. I know in my community, I've had to replace my side sticker now about every 2 years,
Yep.
and there's a cost for those stickers. But I have not had to replace my SunPass, which is the same type of technology, like
Mhm.
ever.
Yeah.
So the cost savings on keeping 300 or 400 of the ID barcodes, as everyone calls them, for the exterior of the car versus an interior RFID, that cost savings could be substantial when you're talking about multiple years or 5 or 7 or whatever. So it's something new technology, but something to consider for a cost savings.
Absolutely. And on that note, the database management side of it, we can collect as much or as little information as the community would like. So some communities just want to know that Bob and Mary Jones have sticker numbers 1234 and 1235, but other communities really want to get specific. They have a, red Honda Accord 1997 with license plate number X, and we can collect as much of that information as you'd like as we're building out those databases and maintaining those databases. So that just becomes one more layer of searchable data if you need to look up a license plate.
Hmm.
So the next facet to secure community entrances would be high-speed barrier gates. The particular type of barrier gate that we utilize is made by Magnetic Auto Control, and it's barrier gates 2.0, I would say, based on a comparison between like the more commonly available barrier gate operators. Typically, they're made by Chamberlain. They've been the same for 50 years. There's not a lot, a lot to them. They're very basic kind of devices. But these new magnetic auto control devices are network devices. They have built-in gate strike detection. They're incredibly energy efficient. I think they use 85% less energy than a traditional barrier gate. They have a 10 million cycle maintenance-free motor. They're fantastic because when they're struck, a normal barrier gate will fall off and then it's laying on the ground and then 5 other cars drive over it. And then you've got to, get somebody out there to line up the screws with the little nylon nuts and put it back on. It's very cumbersome. These arms have a breakaway cradle, so they'll either go to the up position or the perpendicular position, depending on the distance from the swing gate. So in the image that you see on the screen right there, they're close to the swing gate, so they go to the up position so they don't get caught in the mechanism of the swing gate. So if they're struck, you literally just pop them back into the cradle. So this is great from a community perspective, because if you have to dispatch a gate company to reattach a barrier arm, the typical cost for that's about $250 for what amounts to a couple of minutes of work for the gate company. But with this type of a solution, if a community has an involved resident base, like sometimes they'll make a security committee and we can notify them that a gate's been struck, and then even an older person could go down and easily pop one of these barrier arms back into the cradle and get it back into operation. So it saves the community a lot of money and it allows the residents to kind of get hands-on with their own communities. But I would have a hard time putting on a 15-foot barrier arm by myself, but I could easily pop one of these back into the cradle, and we'll provide training to any community designees that would want to do that. And finally, the most exciting thing I think about these arms is the operating speed of them. So a traditional Chamberlain arm is about 4 seconds to go up and 4 seconds to go down. These operate in about a second. So I know it seems like there's probably not that much difference, but when you're talking about traffic going through a gate, it's extremely fast when they come down in one second. So they're incredible at deterring tailgating. Once it's actually kind of interesting when we first install them and you kind of like observe traffic. If they've replaced a traditional type of arm, you'll see people that are used to being able to tailgate think, oh, I can push my luck and try this, but they find out very, very quickly these arms are going to come down on them. So if you have a community that tailgating is an issue, these are a fantastic solution for that. They also come with LED lights, as you can see in this image. So this is an option for them. When they're in the down position, like you see here, there's a solid red light. When they're in motion, they flash red. And then when they're fully upright, indicating that you can go through, they'll be green. So just additional level of kind of wayfinding. If you have dark entrances, like a lot of community entrances tend to be, these definitely help increase the visibility and, again, deter tailgating. So like I said, they have integrated gate strike sensors on them. So when one of those arms is hit, it will send a alert to our monitoring center here. And one of our team members will go through and verify that alarm and see what caused it. So we'll send an email notification to community contacts, and then we'll provide the registration information for that vehicle as well. We'll also cross-reference and let you know if that vehicle is associated with a resident guest list. So, sometimes it's difficult to pursue damages for somebody that doesn't live within the community, but to be able to go to the resident and say, hey, your visitor has tailgated 3 times now, and there's repercussions associated with that, is sometimes helpful in collecting those damages.
And the management company would then also have the ability with the reporting in the database to now restrict that individual vehicle from getting access into the community, whether they were on a resident list or not. Right. Yeah. Now the management company can say we've had 3 vehicle strikes due to this. We've been unable to collect, so we're going to restrict access for this guest into the community by using the software system. Whether someone puts a request for them to come in or not, the management company can limit access.
Yes, you can add them as a deny. And here is an example of exactly the type of incident report that community management would receive. So if we give you the community name, the location, the repair status, and a ticket number if you need to follow up on it, and then just a description of what occurred in that time. We used to automatically send the video link with every video pull, but we found that about 90% of them were not being opened. The incident report in and of itself was providing enough information. So now you can request that video directly off of the email link. Or if you're one of those communities that you want that video every time, then we can set you up for automated video pulls. But as a standard at this point, we don't do it that way.
And Wendy, typically, how long do you if an inquiry was made? Let's say, how long do you typically store the video for? Is it 30 days, 60 days? Can someone go back and say we had an incident 90 days ago with a vehicle? Can we pull information? What do most associations do?
So that's a great question. All of our systems are designed hardwired on site. So you're going to have a DVR on site with about 30 days worth of 24/7 record capacity for all of those cameras. Here in our servers, we're backing up incident or transaction related video. So every time a visitor comes through the gate, that specific interaction would be stored for up to 90 days. We typically would recommend that within 30 days, you let us know if there's anything else that you need. Usually you'll know, right? If there's any kind of damage or something, it typically comes up within 30 days period. It's definitely outside of the norm that it would be 90 days later, but anything that you need us to archive longer, just let us know and we can back it up indefinitely for you. But we would like to know within 30 days if possible. We also will cooperate with law enforcement to the highest extent possible. So we actually prioritize a typical video pull. We say, give us 48 hours. It's typically a lot quicker than that, but 48 hours is usually the maximum response time to get your video request. We provide them in Dropbox format, so it's really easy for you to share. You don't have to have any type of software, right, to view it. But if you're going to, as the association say, charge for the damage to the barrier arm, you can include in the notice, here's the video link of you driving through the barrier arm. So there's no disputing it. It's here with the fine as well. With law enforcement, we'll provide them with watermarked evidentiary quality video for any kind of criminal proceedings that they have. Oftentimes, they actually want the hard drive from the DVR, and in that case, we'll give them the DVR and we'll put in a loaner at the community, so the community has no downtime. The sheriff's office can keep the DVR as long as they need to pursue their case, and when they're done, they just give it back to us and we'll swap them back out again. But we definitely want to cooperate with law enforcement and make sure that we're good partners in that respect.
Thank you. That's huge. I mean, there are a lot of things that happen on a property, right? And just being able to have that, if you have a time frame that something occurred, you can see who was in and out based on the reporting at that time frame. Just incredibly valuable information.
So the next layer then would be that video surveillance, and there's two main types of video surveillance. The first we'll talk about is the passive surveillance. So this is the type of surveillance that we would typically do at like a resident-only entrance, maybe a non-gated area, or a community asset that's maybe doesn't have time restrictions, like maybe community mailboxes or a dog park or something like that. So we can install cameras. Like I said, the cameras are rolling 24/7. We give you about 30 days worth of record capacity. Now, if a community wants longer record capacity, we can absolutely add hard drive space to any DVR to give you more storage capacity if that's a concern for the community, but our standard is usually about 30 days. And then again, specialized tag cameras, all of the same types of things that you would see with the virtual gate guard in just like a passive surveillance type of scenario. So no human interaction with this. This is just cameras rolling. And I mean, look, cameras on post are deterrent in and of themselves. I've been to a lot of community watch presentations with sheriff's office in different communities, and they will tell you that if a bad guy is driving through an area and looking for a neighborhood to target, they are going to choose the neighborhood that has no cameras at their entrance before they would choose the one that's going to have cameras. So by that virtue alone, the crime is always lower in secured communities in that manner. So this is a great way to, like I said, you get those same license plate cameras. We can provide the same video and vehicle owner information for any kind of damages, if there's barrier gates associated with it, like all of those same things would apply in this. But this is a great option also for community amenities that aren't time restricted. For the ones that do have time restrictions, like pools, clubhouses, sports courts, those types of things, we can control the access to those areas. And this kind of works hand in hand with access control, which we'll talk about next. But the camera system can essentially, it arms during the time. So let's take a pool, for instance. The most common in Florida would be they're open from dawn to dusk. So the system would arm at dusk. If anybody is in the area after dusk, the camera would recognize that there's a person in the area and trigger an alarm to our guards. Then our guards would voice down and say, "This area is closed. Please collect your belongings and leave." We'll wait a minute or two and see if they listen. If they don't, then we'll do with our second voice down, we'll give them a descriptor. Oftentimes people think it might be a recording and, oh, I can ignore it. It's just a recording. With the second voice down, we might say, "We're speaking to you in the red shirt. This area is now closed. You need to collect your belongings and leave." And then we'll give them another minute. And then the third voice down would be, "We're dispatching authorities. This area is closed and you're trespassing." So those authorities, it's up to you what those want to be. Most communities, that's the sheriff's office, but some communities may have rovers. And in that case, we can notify the rovers to go down to the pool. So it's just really up to the community who that third level of dispatch is. Two-way audio, one-way video, and an email notification to community contacts as that event occurs. And then that video, of course, is backed up onto our servers. If you need it for longer, just let us know and we can definitely keep it.
Wendy, this is the one I'm actually been most interested in because I hear this from a lot of boards that we talk to. There's trepidation sometimes in the instance like you said, the example, it's the pool, right? Mm-hmm. It's after dusk, someone goes down there. There may be some young adults. There may be somebody that just unaware of the rules. And if you don't have a system such as this, a lot of times it may be up to a board member, or typically management is not going to be there in the evening hours after dusk. So then who is going to go down there and inform these people, hey, you're not supposed to be here, right? What we never want is to have confrontations. Yes. So something like this, being able to monitor and have a live voice responding to it and alerting someone, and a lot of times, right, the interaction is going to be, "Oh, very sorry, didn't know there was the rule. We'll go ahead and leave." But always having to be careful with interactions. What we don't want is having a board member at 9 o'clock at night to have to, get dressed and go down into the pool and try to chase someone away. Or not understand what's going on. So having the active surveillance on some of those assets, there's so many values in there that can eliminate problems before they actually start. And I think it's the one that's most interesting to me, and I think it's an option that a lot of boards don't actually know is available.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a great solution. So what you see here on the screen, this is the actual software that the system uses, and it may be a little bit hard to see, but in each of these, there's a little pink box. That's the artificial intelligence that has identified that there is a human. It can tell the difference between, you know, a cat running across the pool deck, a palm frond, you know, blowing in the wind. It's very, very specific. And then down the right side of each of these, this is actually what community management will receive, is a link to be able to go through. They can see every keystroke that our guards make, every camera view that they look at. So if it's a large amenity, there might be multiple camera views that we go through and verify to, you know, make sure that there's nobody in that unauthorized area. So this is real time. As soon as this event happens, as the guard closes out that alarm, community management will have that email in their inbox. So the next morning when the resident says, I heard some people in the pool last night, community management can say, yep, there was an incident at, you know, 10:52, and, you know, Envera dispatched police and they were out of the area by, you know, 11:05. So real-time information, and we put it all into community management's hands so that you're informed.
Also, too, like if you think about it, because as a management company, one of our primary concerns is limiting liability for our customers, which would be the association, the residents, and the board, right? So if you're not aware, if you don't have your assets being monitored like a pool, and something were to happen, you know, simply having a sign on the gate, right? Hey, that works great. You're letting people know, but the enforcement end of it, right? You always want to enforce before something happens. A lawsuit occurs, a loss of life, something, you know, very important. Protecting these assets gives you, and having it on video, right? Having it documented where, hey, we told this individual they were not supposed to be here. You know, here's the process of it. It does help should there be any kind of litigation or liability question. You're backed up. You have the proof, you have monitoring, you have a log, you have reports that are being able to be issued to the board, and, you know, by extension, whatever other entity might be involved. I can't, you know, I'm not in security. I love this. This is an amazing feature. And again, I just wish more boards would know about this. So again, purpose of today.
Yeah, thank you. It's also really great too, because we're keeping metrics on this as well. So I've met with, you know, board members and communities over the years as well that'll say, well, you know, we don't really have much, you know, activity at the pool. So maybe it's a system that we don't really need to have, but then I can go back and pull, you know, historical stats. Well, at the time that we put in the system, we had 25 voice downs the first month, and then it went to, you know, 15 the next month. And then, you know, you can see the trajectory that the activity definitely will die down when people know that they will get kicked out of the area. So the last piece of the puzzle, so to speak, is that community-wide electronic access control. So this works great hand in hand with that active video surveillance for the amenities. At dusk, when the pool arms, then the access control will no longer grant entry for residents at that time. So they work in tandem together like that. We can also set up access levels. So community management, you know, would have access 24/7, right? But your residents would only have access during the time that the amenities are opened. If there's, you know, maybe vendors, pool cleaners, or that type of thing that need access beginning, say, at 5 o'clock before the pool opens, we can set up credentials for them that allow them access earlier. You'll get those records of granted or denied access by location, date, time, or individual. We, again, can provide all of that database management and credential distribution at the time of installation as well. There's lots of really cool credential options now. The one you see in the picture over there to the left is a key fob, kind of old school, but really is probably the most common. Just easy to attach to a keychain. Almost everybody has their keys with them all the time, so that one's really simple, but we do have other options as well. So biometrics with fingerprint scanning is an option as well. And then the new one that's really got a lot of buzz around it is Bluetooth, where you can actually use your mobile device to open gates. And that's been a lot of fun to implement and see. Everybody has their phone on them in this day and age all the time. And so it's just one less thing to have to worry about. You've always got your phone on you. And it's a web-based interface for that access control panel. So community management also can have access to that as well, and reporting. You know, community management, you guys have a lot on your plate. Some community managers like to dig in and do some of the investigative work themselves, but the beauty is you don't have to with us. We will provide all of that information for you so that you can focus on other things and leave all of that administrative type of stuff to us. So the last piece is the system redundancies. We really try to build out our systems to be really robust, and so that the information is there when you need it. That picture that you see there isn't actually a stock photo. That is our server room here in our Sarasota offices. So we're backing all of the data up that we talked about to this cloud. We're also in the process of migrating to a true cloud as well for double redundancies with backups. We've got a UPS battery backup here on site with a big diesel generator with 5 days on-site fuel out back. We strategically chose this location for our monitoring center because the Sarasota Sheriff's Office is right next to us on that side, and Doctors Hospital is right next to us on the other side. So we're on that grid where we're the last ones to lose power or power specifically, but then also with internet, we have triple redundancy with the internet lines. Obviously, we're managing all of this virtual guarding over the internet connections. So our first line of defense is our Verizon dedicated business fiber. That is a $10,000 a month feature that has a guaranteed 1 hour response time that will not go down. But even if it does, we have standard Verizon Fios and then also Comcast fiber. So triple redundancy there to fail over. We've never had an incident where we've been without internet in these offices. Those are Dell Enterprise servers. We utilize firewalls and the latest SSL encryption for protection of data. None of the data that we're keeping is really anything that's outside of availability in the public domain anyway. If you Googled me, you could find my address, and that's really all we're going to have is a name and address, but none of our servers are public facing. We've never been hacked, and we've got all of this encryption and firewall in place. And then we also restrict access to that server room by job function here in the office. I, for one, do not have access. That's probably a good thing because I could only cause trouble in there. And everything is audio and video surveilled in there as well. So finally, in conclusion, I hope I've done a reasonable job of explaining to you why we are full service community security specialists. We've been privileged to serve communities across Florida and Texas for 17 years now. Like I said, we've got almost 1,000 total customers, and almost half of those are for virtual gate guard communities. We are the leaders in virtual guarding with over 2 million visitor transactions a month, less than 10-second response time, less than 1 minute total transaction time for unverified visitors. We've got our 24/7 supervised monitoring center here in Sarasota with continued in-house training, detailed reporting, audio and video recording of every interaction that we have. The artificial intelligence software that's monitoring the transactions that our guards are taking part in for just every little detail, really, you know, adherence to the script, but also tone of voice to make sure that like all of those interactions are polite and positive and professional. We've got service techs based geographically across Florida and Texas to make sure that we're able to respond really quickly if we need to roll a truck. But then again, we also build all those systems with the utmost of remote management so that we can try to resolve issues. If you have, say, at your home, your internet goes down, if you call your internet provider, what's the first thing they tell you to do? Unplug it and plug it back in, right? So we have the ability to do that remotely. So we try to build that in. So that just means less downtime and less truck rolls to get the technicians out on site. We offer ongoing training and support for those software platforms and services for boards and CAMs. We understand that boards change annually. Community management changes often, sometimes as well. And a lot of times we have customers that kind of inherit systems from us, and we're going to treat them just the way that we did with those original stakeholders to make sure that they're equipped to be able to utilize all the tools that are available to them. So our intent is really to be full service community access control partners for the communities that we serve.
Wendy is great. I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing. I think you've given a lot of information. I think most people think, it's gate access, it's letting people in. It really has evolved in the industry to be much more. And I know in talking with a lot of boards, right, cost is everything. Everyone is worried about the increase of insurance rates, and now we have buildings with the SIRS inspections and special assessments. So everyone is really looking to trim their budget or to make sure that what they are spending, they're spending it in the most efficient way. So I think this gives a great option to the old brick and mortar. Somebody has to be there, 9:30 at night or 9:30 in the morning to greet our guests, when there are more cost effective options that don't necessarily relate to a reduction in service, but can actually give an increase in service. So I think you've given us a lot of things to think about today. I'm going to go ahead right now, because we are nearing 4 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and put up yours and mine email for everyone. So if you have questions or you'd like to get a copy of the presentation, please feel free to reach out to Wendy. She is an amazing expert on this subject. She'll be happy to give you guys all kinds of options and talk to you about what she can offer to your communities. So we're thankful for her to be here with us and joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Eric. It's been a pleasure.